Did you know that in 2013, the Texas lottery was abolished? It's true. Watching a handful of lawmakers in the Texas House kill the Texas lottery was surreal. But it was only dead for a few hours. Then, powerful interests stepped in and resurrected the lottery from its legislative grave. You'd think that an agency that narrowly avoided the axe would sober up, but they didn't. Since 2013, the commission has helped foreigners rig a $95 million jackpot, opened the door for children to buy lottery tickets online, and repeatedly ignored clear direction from lawmakers. What happened that day in 2013? Why did lawmakers who initially voted to abolish the lottery bail? And how can today's lawmakers be better prepared the next time they're faced with a golden opportunity to be bold? In this episode, we'll rewind to that day in 2013, when the book closed on the Texas lottery, only to be reopened so the agency could run amok. From Texas Scorecard, I'm Daniel Greer, and this is Exposed, Gateway Drug.
They've completely turned on its head what voters in 1991 could have contemplated when they approved the lottery in this state.
Some of the most serious problems America faces today are partially rooted in the truth that lotteries, which are a government program, have turned tens of millions of small earners who could be small savers into a nation of habitual gamblers.
And I don't think the state would lose a thing by just shutting them down.
Let's start at the beginning.
This is the Texas Lottery Commission Sunset Bill. Created in 1993, the Texas Lottery Commission administers the state lottery and regulates charitable bingo. The commission's mission is to generate revenue for the state, primarily for education, the school foundation fund, through the management and sale of lottery proceeds. A policymaking body.
That was Democrat State Representative Rafael Anchia. He was proposing a law to extend the lottery for another 12 years. He did this during the sunset review process. As we discussed in earlier episodes of this season, sunset reviews are when agencies are examined to evaluate effectiveness and necessity. These reviews happen periodically and are carried out by a group of lawmakers called the Sunset Commission. When these reviews happen, lawmakers can choose to continue an agency, call for reforms, or abolish it altogether. Abolition is almost never exercised. In the case of the Lottery Commission in 2013, lawmakers on the Sunset Commission recommended continuation, but they wanted changes to improve the transparency and efficiency. When Anchia stepped up to the mic to lay out his proposal, the expectation was that it would sail through. But after Anchia stepped away from the microphone and a few amendments were made, war broke out.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Friends, I come to speak against the bill today based upon the moral grounds that the lottery is a tax on poor people. It is therefore immoral and wrong. According to the University of Texas at Arlington, the median amount of money spent each year on the lottery by someone with less than a high school education was over $600, while a person with a graduate school education only spent $156. In other words, someone who hasn't graduated high school will spend 4 times more money playing the lottery than a person with a graduate education.
That's the voice of Scott Sanford, a state representative from Collin County. Even though 2013 was his freshman year in the Texas House, that day he came prepared to end the lottery. Then, a group of lawmakers from both parties joined his cause. They weren't organized. They acted on instinct. Here's how Rob Kohler, a lobbyist who was there, characterized what happened that afternoon.
The beautiful thing about that, Daniel, and I was right in the middle of it, is it was organic.
Pro-lottery forces argued that the lottery is a crucial funding source for education to save the lottery from Sanford's broadside. As we covered earlier in this season, though the lottery's funding contribution may seem big, as a percentage of the total needed to fund government education, it's less than 2%. Back in 2013, that figure was still shy of $1 billion. As we've noted throughout this season, the total revenue generated by the lottery during its continuous existence is less than the amount it would take to fund 1 year of education in the state of Texas. Quite simply, the lottery provides less than a drop in the education budget bucket. Some lawmakers, like Sanford, have argued that it's not the best mechanism to fund education.
Many people say that we have to keep the lottery to help fund education. but it is failing as an effective means of education funding. In 1996, the lottery proceeds paid for about 2 weeks of schooling for Texas students. In 2010, it barely covered 3 days.
During the floor debate, Sanford noted, quote, "The state of Texas should not be in the business of selling hope to the hopeless." To reiterate a point from earlier in the season, the odds of winning the lottery are 1 in 300 million, infinitely small. Sanford also brought up the idea that the lottery is a regressive tax, meaning it taxes the poor at a higher rate than the wealthy.
According to the National Gambling Impact Study commissioned by Congress, the lottery is termed regressive because the state takes a greater percentage of income from those with lower incomes.
A main point of contention for bipartisan detractors of the lottery is it's a de facto tax on the poor.
The lottery is the definition of a regressive tax, meaning it takes more money from those who are poor than it does from those who are richer.
Regressive taxes impact the poor more than any other demographic. Like payday lending, it disproportionately impacts the lower income, the undereducated, and minorities. Here's historian Jonathan Cohen.
1 in 8 Americans buy a lottery ticket once a week, which is a lot, and 20 to 30% of players account for as much as 70 or 80% of lottery sales. And that 20 to 30% is disproportionately Black and Latino, disproportionately less educated, and disproportionately poorer.
After Sanford's speech, a handful of colleagues joined his fight. Among them were Democrats like Lon Burnham, a former representative from Fort Worth, and Mike Villarreal from San Antonio.
I didn't hear all of your comments against this, but are you aware that the Christian Life Commission is opposed to this bill because of exactly what you're saying? As in essence, the lottery represents a tax on the poor.
I believe I am aware of that, yes.
Thank you. I agree with you. I'm voting against the bill.
Other Democrats also defected to abolish the lottery. That was a unique position then, and even more so in 2024.
I think they were surprised that those of us that oppose it won on the initial vote. And it's like a lot of things, an unusual alliance between what you might call very conservative Republicans and some liberal Democrats.
Rafael Anchia, the author of the Sunset Bill and its defender, is a Democrat. And for some reason, in Texas, historically gambling efforts have been led by Democrats. I say for some reason because it goes against the Democrat Party's public image. The lottery impacts the poor more than any other demographic. In fact, during the past several legislative sessions, Democrats and the House have been leading the charge to expand gambling in the state, which is a change.
Back then, you could get one through the Senate. You couldn't get one through the House. And, the lottery sunset came up and it was sunsetted.
Sanford and his allies must have made a compelling case.
There being 64 ayes, 82 nays, which means 2197 fails to pass.
And just like that, the lottery was abolished.
The Lottery Commission is gone.
That was former state representative Linda Harper Brown putting a fine point on the end to the Lottery Commission. Former Representative Burnham reflected on the vote.
At the time, I thought it was something worth trying to kill. I just think that state-sponsored gambling is immoral.
But in a twist, shortly after his bill was defeated, Representative Anchia announced that the bill might come back to the floor. And that's when the lobbying began in earnest. Here's Lon Burnham describing what took place after the vote.
It's kind of typical of ways things happen. Votes do get turned around, arms get twisted.
The talking point of the lottery funding government education was used as a cudgel against lawmakers who voted to abolish it. The pro-lottery lobby took advantage of one flaw in Scott Sanford's dagger to the heart of the lottery. It didn't include a mechanism to replace funds cut from government education, no matter how minuscule. Without proposing a replacement, Team Sanford had inadvertently opened themselves up to a potent line of attack: the accusation that they were cutting funding for education. There may have been other, less forward-facing reasons the bill was resurrected.
Strauss was still Speaker, and his family's always been interested in supporting of gambling. And so that may have had as much to do with it as anything.
Joe Strauss, Speaker of the House at the time, was working to expand gambling, specifically at horse tracks. His family developed the Retama racetrack in North San Antonio and still has racing interests to this day. In 2013, a 75% stake in Retama was sold to the national casino company Penn Entertainment. The purchase was made hoping that gambling would someday be expanded to include slot machines. Moving backward with the lottery would mean moving backward on gambling writ large. House leadership twisted arms, and it worked. And this is what we see with the lottery and all gambling expansion efforts. The motivation shouldn't be taken at face value.
I think it primarily exists now for the benefit of the staff and the vendors that are associated with it. They're the primary beneficiaries. The beneficiaries are not the school children of Texas.
The 4 Democratic lawmakers who voted to abolish the lottery reversed course. The vote was returned to the floor. All 4 voted to keep the lottery.
And so I opposed it back when it passed with Ann Richards as governor, and it was more like an opportunity to express my sentiments about it.
In an interview after the redo vote, Democrat Representative Mike Villarreal said he knew, quote, "From legislative experience, there's misinformation about how much money the lottery benefits schools." At the time, Lon Burdham was quoted as saying he hated the lottery.
And the people that spend the most money in the lottery, lower to low-income folks, just groping for some sort of economic hope, where there really is no hope. It's a false hope. And that's the reason I said I hated it.
Another weapon was used against lawmakers seeking to kill the lottery: bingo games put on by charities at VFW halls. Bingo has been around longer than the lottery, but it is less pervasive. It's run by the Lottery Commission, meaning it was in jeopardy of dying alongside the lottery. But time and deeper thought would have exposed a hole in that flawed argument. Veterans programs are not funded by the lottery, but by bingo play in Texas. Regardless, after the initial vote to end the lottery, explanations were given by lawmakers who switched sides for the revote. None of these are overly compelling, but they do bear repeating. Some lawmakers claimed they didn't realize the vote would result in an immediate revenue loss. Here's what Mike Villarreal said in an interview after the vote.
In the end, we all kind of came together in accidental majority to first vote down the bill, then bring it back.
Another set of lawmakers claimed they were voting to make a statement, expecting it wouldn't pass. Whatever the case, when the proposal went to a final vote, Republican John Smithee took one more pass at sunsetting the lottery. He put forward an amendment to extend the lottery for just 4 more years. At that point, the legislator would have to proactively extend the lottery. That measure required a 2/3 vote. It fell just 6 votes short. This story is worth retelling because it's a case study in preparation. The concerns raised during the 2013 legislative session haven't disappeared. They've been compounded, and the list of grievances against the Lottery Commission has grown. Lawmakers will enter the next legislative session with their eyes wide open. The Lottery Commission's actions this past decade are crystal clear. The Commission has overrun its boundaries. It has expanded its predatory pastime to the phone screens of not only Texans, but also foreign bettors and cartels. The sunset review process isn't just a bureaucratic formality. It's a powerful tool that Texans who hope to reshape state government have largely ignored. The legislative process isn't a mystery. A single amendment, underestimated by most, nearly dismantled a state agency and a legislative body on autopilot. In this season of Exposed, we've covered a lot of ground. We told the story of the founding of the lottery and how one lawmaker stood out, opposing the lottery's creation. We examined how the lottery was sold using promises of endless cash for education, promises that haven't panned out. We heard dueling tales of out-of-staters striking it rich and exposed the contrast in how the Lottery Commission handled each case. It's mind-boggling that an international syndicate was able to rig the system, seemingly with the Lottery Commission's help, and the state hasn't taken action. Now we know how the lottery's abuse of the rulemaking process could lead Texas to being overrun with crime-ridden casinos. Of course, any examination of the lottery or any form of gambling would be incomplete without discussing the predatory nature of gambling itself. It was an airing of these truths on the floor of the Texas House that led to the fleeting abolition of the lottery in 2013. Maybe lawmakers will snap out of their stupor before Texas is ravaged by more pernicious forms of gambling. The first step will be dealing with the Texas lottery. Perhaps lawmakers will snap to their senses as someone emerges from sleep at the smell of coffee before the pestilence of gambling ravages Texas. This cloudy specter of expanded gambling prowls at our borders, presenting itself as a harmless form of entertainment. In reality, it's prone, ready to drag people's lives into destruction. Simply said, the Texas Lottery is a gateway drug for the people of Texas into enslavement. As citizens and as Texas, dealing with the problem of gambling as a whole means dealing with the Texas Lottery. Thank you for listening to this season of Exposed. We'd like to thank Lon Burnham for being interviewed for this podcast.
Exposed is a product of Texas Scorecard, the leading source on government and culture in Texas. For more information, go to texasscorecard.com.